Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Thursday Night Thunderdome, where all the legal stories that otherwise fell through the cracks come together in a battle royale to fight it out, to find out which story is strangest story, stupidest story, most interesting story, or otherwise informs us a little bit about the stranger points of law. We begin tonight with two stories related to the same person. In story number one, we talk about Britney Spears and her former husband, very immediately former husband, who are now officially divorced. So this marriage didn't last very long, which is sort of disappointing and unfortunate. And who can say why, but it didn't. But it officially has come to an end. Britney Spears and Sam Agashi are officially divorced and signal. Britney, give me a call. The dissolution of the couple's marriage was finalized Friday by a Los Angeles County judge nearly 2 years after they were married. So it didn't last very long indeed. The judgment comes hours after the 42-year-old pop superstar and the 30-year-old model and actor informed the court they had reached a divorce settlement, which I'm not quite 100% sure what that is about, to be quite honest, because Britney, of course, had a prenup. So I'm not really quite sure what went wrong there with respect to the prenup, because this should be really easy, right? I mean, this should be just done on a prenup. So I'm not sure what the nature of the settlement is or what that is, but it feels somehow like Britney got done dirty somehow, and I don't really like that feeling very much. So I'm not a super happy camper. And as we will talk a little bit in story number two, a week after a court settlement with her father over the conservatorship, which we will talk about more in a little bit as we get to that story. The couple filed court papers Thursday and Friday saying they had reached a settlement on dividing assets. Few details were made public, which, fair enough, but neither Spears nor Agashi will get future spousal support. So fair enough. Agari had said that in his initial petition he would seek financial support. Any future disputes would need to be settled in a private arbitration relating to this particular settlement. Spears and Agari, separated in July, and he filed for divorce in August. They had been dating for about 7 years. So somehow, once they got married, the kids weren't able to make it work, which is very sad. The two had no children together, although I believe, if memory serves correctly, and I could be having a fever dream, but I seem to remember that Britney was pregnant but miscarried, which may be part of the problem for all I know. So I don't know if that's what's going on, but fair enough. And he filed for divorce in August. They had been dating for about 7 years. Spears wrote in her memoir passed last year that she and Agari had a miscarriage. See, I did remember. So I wasn't having a fever dream. I just remember that detail. Yay. Emails seeking details or comments from lawyers from both Spears and Agari were not immediately returned. Their marriage at their home in June of 2022 in front of guests included Selena Gomez, Drew Barrymore, Paris Hilton, and Madonna, was at the time seen as a bit of a triumphant milestone in her new reclaimed life after she was freed only a few months earlier from the conservatorship, which went on forever, and I have many feelings about, and I'm not a happy camper. Unfortunately, they would split over just a year later. So maybe the reason they got married was because of the pregnancy. Maybe that was the reason they got married, and then the miscarriage, and it all kind of fell apart. So maybe that was what happened. So, yeah. Last Friday, Spears and her father, James E. Spears, reached a settlement. We'll discuss that more. And she had written in a post after the divorce filing, "I'm not here to explain why, because it's honestly no one's business, but I couldn't take the pain more honestly." I mean, fair enough. That woman has been through a lot. I mean, I appreciate that. In her memoir, The Woman in Me, released 2 months after they filed for divorce, Spears speaks only briefly and positively about her former husband. She describes him holding her hand while she addressed a judge remotely during a key hearing that helped end the conservatorship. Like the vast majority of those who file for California, they cite irreconcilable differences because it's everyone's go-to. I mean, every state allows for no fault divorce. You still can get married for fault, by the way, or divorced for fault, I should say, which is a bit of a misunderstanding that people have had. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, because I've had this misapprehension before from people when I've been talking about this in whatever context it has. And it's like, oh, they could sue for divorce for adultery. And it's like, well, every state has no fault divorce. I'm like, yes, they do. But they also have fault divorce. Every state has fault divorce. And if you're asking yourself, why would you choose one over the other? Because in some situations, you can't get one or the other within certain time periods. For example, in Virginia, if memory serves, and again, I'm going off like back of the envelope memory because it's not my field of law, but I seem to remember that if you have children, you can't like file for cause for like a year or something. But if it's without cause, so you have to like wait a year after some notice or something before filing a divorce for irreconcilable differences. But if it's for cause, you can file for it immediately. So that would be one example, because in some situations there might be a time period that you might have to wait, and there might not be for one other ones. And the other one, of course, is because prenups sometimes contemplate for cause. And of course, the other reason is just because you're pissed. So I just, would like to point that out just so that you learn something. For cause divorce still exists, although of course the not for cause is much more popular. Spears was married less than 3 days in 2024 to her childhood friend, Jason Alexander, not to be confused with the actor, who attempted to crash her wedding to the man and was later convicted of misdemeanor trespassing. Not a great look. He had that burning flame, man, and he wanted to get married. They were married for 3 days. They went to Vegas, and she got a quickie annulment, and he's not a happy camper. She cited her desire. Spears began dating the model and actor when he appeared in a video for her song Slumber Party. She cited her desire to marry him as among the reasons she wanted to end the conservatorship, which she said was preventing it, which I'm sure is true. The two had announced their engagement in September 2021. Since the conservatorship ended, Spears has put out music, including collaboration with Elton John in 2022, but she has not performed live in years, and said she has no intention of performing or making a new album, which if she wants to retire, then good for her. Good for her. And maybe she'll change her mind at some later point. But, I feel like she's been through enough. And maybe the best thing for her at the moment is just to, have a cabin in the woods and enjoy a lake or something. That seems like that might be a good idea. But I'm not, in the finer points of it. Moving on to Britney Spears, story number 2. The story with her father has come to an end, which irritates me. I am not an expert on conservatorship law, but it felt like Britney Spears was getting done dirty in a lot of different ways. Conservatorship in this particular situation didn't really make sense. All right, conservatorship is for a situation in which a person is basically utterly incapable of taking care of themselves. But it's a very, very odd situation when you have a conservatorship and you're having the conservatee perform for major shows and sing and lead dancers and such. That shows a lot more competence than you typically see in your typical conservatorship. So I don't know what the hell happened in this situation. I don't know how it went on this long. And her father at times was paying himself more than he was giving her. He was giving himself a greater allowance than he was giving her. Riding high on the hog, exploiting his own daughter, it seems at times. So the indications don't necessarily look super positive over here as it relates to this with respect to the father. So I'm a little bit annoyed that apparently this has come to an end, because it looks like Britney Spears might not have gotten justice. Britney Spears and her father, Jamie Spears, will avoid what could have been a long, ugly, and revealing trial with the settlement of lingering issues in the court conservatorship that controlled her life for 14 years, and that's a hell of a long time. A hearing on those issues, including a request from Jamie Spears for a broad ruling dismissing them, had been scheduled for Monday, but was pulled from the court calendar after the settlement was approved. Britney Spears was taken out of the conservatorship in November 2021 after a pair of speeches she made to a judge turned what had been growing public sentiment against it into a cause best known for the hashtag Free Britney, which I tend to agree with. Look, I'm not saying that Britney Spears doesn't have problems. And I'm not saying that she doesn't even have severe problems. But I am saying that the standards for conservatorship do not appear to be met under this circumstance. Conservatorships are meant for people who are just completely, basically, corrupt. They're just not there. In one sense or another. They're just not there. And this seemed completely dirty. And also the fact the conservator was her own father, as opposed to when you have high profile conservatorships, there are like people who do that because, you know, they're trained, they're more akin to knowing about that. And the fact the conservator was her father led to all kinds of weird conflicts of interest. So yeah, I am. She is mentally competent in the most legal sense of the word. So she may have mental problems, but she is mentally competent, because those are not the same thing. And I would never argue they're the same thing. So I don't really understand why this had been going on as long as it had. It doesn't make any sense to me. Several elements remain and dragged on in court, including final payments to attorneys who helped to operate the conservatorship. Of course, the attorneys want to get paid for that last payment, just like they want all the other payments. They want to eke everything out of this they can. Spears' attorney, Matthew Rosengart, had also sought a public reckoning over what he said was financial malfeasance by James Spears and allegations of excessive surveillance of Spears, but her own attorney didn't really seem to take as many steps to further her interest as one would expect. So she seemed to maybe be having problems with her own attorney too, who maybe wasn't seeming to be as involved as he might indicate. All that will now be dispensed with in a settlement where terms were not disclosed, which I'm sure are, you know, pretty shit. One of them, of course, says Jamie Spears has been fully and finally discharged. Yes, so fine. Although the conservatorship was terminated in 2021, her wish for freedom is truly complete, her attorney said. As she desired, her freedom now includes she will no longer need to attend or be involved with the court or entangled in legal proceedings, which if that's truly what happened, then, you know, fair enough. Although, you know, the vindictive side of me really wanted to see her father dragged over the legal coals. But she had been through it for 14 years, man, and maybe she just didn't have it in her anymore. Plus the thing with her husband was falling apart. So, you know, maybe she just didn't have enough in her. It was not good. The trial had been slated to begin next month. Jamie Spears' attorney, Alex Weingarten, said the settlement was confidential at the assistance of her lawyer. I bet it was. Jamie has nothing to hide and would be happy to disclose everything about every aspect of the conservatorship so the public know the truth. Bullshit. Jamie loves his daughter very much and has always done everything he could to protect her. Also further bullshit. Yeah, sure, it was her idea. The confidentiality was her idea. The only reason it would be her idea is because she was getting completely screwed. And this is complete bullshit. In her memoir, she said that she felt her father had always been about the money, which that seems to be largely true. That seems to be largely true. It was shit up. She had married her former boyfriend months after the conservatorship ended, but they filed for divorce, which was just granted, as we just discussed. And while she has dabbled in music, she has shot down rumors of a new album and vowed that she is not returning to the music industry, which again, if that's true, and if she wants to be free of it, then, you know, bless her. Bless her. She has had enough of all this. So I hope that she can find peace in wherever it is, man. I really hope she does find peace. And that she can feel that she can get whatever it is that she's looking for in the rest of this for her life. She's earned it. She's earned it. Well, my friends, it is Thursday night, Thunderdome, and I am happy here that you are here to spend some time with me, and I hope you're having a great and prosperous day. And we are here to have some fun about the law and learn some of the things that have been happening while we've not been paying attention. I hope, personally, once and for all, my audio issues have been resolved. I apologize to my stream over the last 2 weeks or so, and maybe it's a little bit longer than that at this point, but recently I've been having some real audio issues with my interface. And I think, hopefully, crossing fingers, knock on wood, we have resolved the issue. So we are hoping for the best. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. And I would really like that very much, that it would be over so that we can just have really solid quality audio, that we don't have to deal with that problem anymore. But let's not discuss technical problems because that's boring. A Catholic priest has a different vice from the one that you might be expecting. News. A Catholic priest stole $40,000 of church money in order to play Candy Crush and slot machines. Well, it's nice to know that we are violating one of the other sins of the Bible. So something more conventional. So that's a nice trick for everything. A Catholic priest in Pennsylvania is accused of stealing more than $40,000 from the church to play Candy Crush and other slot games. I didn't know Candy Crush was that exciting. I'm glad you got the Instagram notification. Kick ass. Pennsylvania State Police say Lawrence Kozak spent those alleged funds on a Wizard of Oz slot. Tapping your feet 3 times together won't get you home anymore, my friend. The Candy Crush Saga, Crash Frenzy, Mario Kart Tour, and Pokemon Go. Okay, police say there were over 2,000 transactions marked as gaming from September 2019 to June 2022. Kozak allegedly told authority that he was not gambling, but powering up. Okay. Okay. Powering up it is. No flooding for me. I don't live on the first floor. Don't know about Nate, but I haven't heard anything. Authorities say this credit card was also used to buy gifts for his goddaughter, like his Amazon Fire and a chemistry set. The Archdiocese issued the following statement in response. Father Lawrence Kozak was placed on administrative leave by the Archdiocese in November 2022. Do they reshuffle priests for that? Or is that you don't get to be a priest anymore? How's that work? His administrative leave filed a review of St. Thomas More Parish's financial activity by the Archdiocese Office for Parish Services and Support. That review resulted in certain expenses and expenditure levels utilizing parish funds to be questioned. He embezzled. The Archdiocese then referred the matter to law enforcement. Kozak was formally arrested on April 25th and charged with theft by unlawful taking, failing to make the required disposition of funds, and accessing a device he was not authorized to, and he currently remains on administrative leave. I did not know the power rankings in Candy Crush were that important. I just did not know that, but apparently the Candy Crush is very, very powerful indeed. And that is the end of that story. $40,000 is very into felony territory. Yes, it is extremely into felony territory. So he has many problems. Let's move on to a different felon. This is a bit of a problem. Now, the degree to which this problem is a problem is debatable, but it's definitely a thing. Credit card skimmers. Now, as I'm sure some of you may know, sometimes thieves will place a skimmer on top of an ATM machine or other device that accepts a credit card. And some of them are really good, right? They'll have an ATM like clamshell, right, to put the thing in, and they will make a clamshell that's like exactly the same, that's just a little bit bigger, that goes right on top so that they can skim credit card numbers. Some of them are really quite sophisticated, and they can make numpads that look exactly like the numpads and glue them down. So there's a lot of sophistication there. Okay, so we've caught one of these guys. A man has been arrested for stealing more than $27,000 of credit card numbers at various Walmarts. So yeah, the credit card skimming is real. A man accused of stealing more than 27,000 credit card numbers at different Walmart locations in the Northeast was arrested in North Carolina. A criminal complaint was filed against Romeo Serbin on April 10th, alleging he participated in a fraudulent credit card skimming scheme involving 19 stores primarily located in New York. And to be honest, it's not 100% surprising, unfortunately, because again, some of these skimmer devices are quite sophisticated, and if you're not looking very carefully, it can get to you. And so, because they're designed to look and do look good, and if they're installed with a little bit of care, then there's pretty much no external indication. So I'm not particularly surprised. I guess one of them got away from them, and then we figured out the rest of it. So there you go. Additional stores have been located in New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. All of those states might have some interesting things to say about this as well. So there's a whole bunch of states that might have some interesting things to say about this scheme as we move forward. He's accused of installing the skimmers between July the 2nd of 2023 and July the 8th of 2023. So 6 days. A 6-day binge for 19 stores in multiple different states. And there you go. According to Walmart, global investigators, over 27,000 credit cards and 2,000 debit cards were compromised at the stores while the skimmers were active. Reports say debit cards alone account for at least $10,000 in suspicious transactions. Yep, the credit card skimmer fraud is unfortunately real. An affidavit says that Serbin was likely in the country illegally, which of course doesn't surprise me. Not that it necessarily matters, because I'm sure there's a lot of people here legally doing the thing too. So yeah, don't do that if you can avoid it. The safest way to go, of course, is with the tap option, because then there's no physical contact between the card and you. So that's good, you know. Or the chip reader is, of course, also good. Now, cloning chip readers is possible, but it's a lot harder, technically. So, yeah, I mean, use the chip reader if you can, and use the tap to pay if you even can. That's even better. So, yeah. So watch all that stuff, man, because it's a scary, scary world out there. And that's the end of that story. In murder at the border news, prosecutors say they will not retry an Arizona rancher who was accused of murder that occurred near the U.S.-Mexico border. Weren't able to convince a jury of our peers, and they decided to not try again. Prosecutors said Monday they will not retry the Arizona rancher who was tried in a fatal shooting of a Mexican man on his property that ended last week with a deadlocked jury. Yeah, not particularly surprised about that one, you know. The juror in the trial of George Kelly were unable to reach a unanimous decision after more than 2 days of deliberation, the judge declaring a mistrial. After the mistrial, the office had the option to either retry or drop. So they decided to drop, and that case is gone. Because of unique circumstances and challenges surrounding the case, in other words, we can't convince a jury that a man shooting an illegal immigrant on his own property is bad, the Santa Cruz County Attorney Office decided not to seek retrial. They agreed to dismiss the case. He said a hearing will be scheduled later to determine if it would be dismissed with prejudice, which would mean it could not be brought back to court, which, you know, I would expect, to be honest, because you only have a limited time to decide to retry, right? And that's the law. So you have a limited time to decide to retry. So if you're giving up, then it would defeat the point of the rule if you could just bring it again. So I would imagine it's with prejudice, but they're going to have a hearing again about that, I guess. The defense attorney told the judge that she would file the request to dismiss with prejudice. They did not immediately return a request for comment sent by email. When a reporter for a TV station asked for the man's reaction, he said relief. I bet he is. The nightmare is over, he added, saying the victim's family has my sincere apology. A. Hedinger asked, they don't usually retry? I don't know what the frequency of retrying is, but I imagine it probably happens more with murder cases than not. I would expect, but what do I know? I don't know what the numbers on that is. You'd have to look that up. You got me. Kelly was trailed by protesters demonstrating on behalf of a 48-year-old man who was fatally shot. Gabriel was a human being. Yes, he was, but he was trespassing on a man's land. And so, you know, there's that. Someone walking 100 yards away is not a threat. Well, that isn't necessarily true, depending on the circumstances, but, you know, whatever. The 75-year-old Kelly had been on trial for nearly a month on a city that bordered with Mexico. The rancher had been charged with second-degree murder in the killing. The man who had been shot had lived just south of the border. He was in a group of men that Kelly encountered that day on his cattle ranch. His two adult daughters, along with Mexican consular officials, met with the prosecutor last week to learn about the implications of the mistrial. Yeah, I mean, in other words, it's over. The Mexican consulate said it would release a statement later. There's a Mexican consulate in this city in Arizona? Okay. I mean, that seems odd, but all right. Prosecutors had said Kelly recklessly fired 9 shots from an AK towards the group of men, including the man that was murdered, about 100 yards away. Kelly had said he fired a warning shot, but argued he didn't shoot directly at anyone. The trial coincided with a presidential election year that had drawn widespread interest in border security, which probably didn't hurt. During it, county officials took jurors to the ranch as well as a section of the U.S.-Mexican border. Earlier, Kelly had rejected an agreement with the prosecutors that would have reduced charges to 1 count of negligent homicide if he had pleaded guilty, which is a pretty tempting offer, I'm not going to lie. Kelly was also accused of aggravated assault against another person in the group of 8, but no charges there, so that is what's happening in that case. All right, let's press on. All right, let's press on. Let's see what we got. All right. In smoking in my casino news, New Jersey and a union have asked a judge to dismiss an anti-smoking lawsuit targeting casinos. Interesting idea. We want to sue them for allowing smoking. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure how that exactly works. The employees might have a better shot at it, to be honest. But let's see. Atlantic City's main casino workers union and the Attorney General for New Jersey on Monday asked a judge to dismiss a lawsuit brought by a different union that seeks to ban smoking at the city's 9 casinos. Local 54 of the Unite Here union said in a filing in state superior court that a third of the 10,000 workers it represents would be at a risk of losing their jobs and the means to support their family if smoking was banned. I'm not quite sure that I agree with that, because I imagine the gamblers would go to gamble regardless, but that's just my assumption. Currently, smoking is allowed on 25% of the casino floor, but those areas are not contiguous, and the practical effect is that secondhand smoke is present at varying degrees throughout the floor. That seems like that could potentially be a problem. Excuse me. A lawsuit brought earlier this month by United Auto Workers, which represents dealers at Bally's, Caesars, and Tropicana casinos, seeks to overturn New Jersey's indoor smoking law, which bans it at virtually every workplace except casinos. Yeah, I'm not sure that really works either, to be quite honest. I think New Jersey has the right to ban smoking probably if it wants to, and it can probably exempt certain locations if it wants to do that too. I'm not quite sure how that law would be attacked, but I'm sure someone has thought about it. The New Jersey Attorney General, representing the Democratic Governor Phil Murphy, and the state's health department said the state's indoor smoking law does not deny any group of people equal protection under the law. I mean, I would agree, right? This is smokers. It's not a protected class. So we just need a rational basis, any rational reason to any legitimate end. We want to protect people's health works. We're done. So that makes perfect logical sense. Under the law and does not infringe on any purported constitutional right to safety. I would tend to agree. Nancy Erica Smith, the lawyer who filed the lawsuit, reacted incredulously to the request by Local 54. I've never seen a union fight against the health and safety of their members, not once, she said. Luckily, Unite's economic arguments, while false, have absolutely no relevance to the constitutional question. I would tend to agree. And even if it did have that effect, I don't see how that's relevant. So first of all, I don't think it will have the effect. And even if it did, that would be New Jersey's choice to make. New Jersey could just ban gambling if they wanted to. It's their state. It's their prerogative. So if they want to ban indoor smoking or allow indoor smoking or anything else, I just don't see how that really makes any logical sense. And if it causes casinos to, not be able to be profitable businesses anymore, then that's also New Jersey's choice to make. They can kind of do what they want. So that is what is happening relevant to that. A statement from them said, "We support the health and safety of our members and believe that improvements to the current work environment must be made. A balance needs to be reached that will protect both worker health and preserve good jobs." DiCaprio said the total smoking ban would be catastrophic for Atlantic City, adding that between 50 to 72% of all gambling revenue from in-person gamblers comes from smoking sections. Yes, it probably does, but that doesn't necessarily imply that those people would go away. So I don't know about that. The union endorsed legislation earlier this year that would keep the current 25% on the casino floor in which smoking can occur. But it would allow smoking in unenclosed areas of the casino floor that contain slot machines and are designed as smoking areas that are more than 15 feet away from table games staffed by live dealers. There's unenclosed areas of a casino floor? What casino has unenclosed areas of its floor? Is there an open sky casino somewhere I don't know about? Because that would be interesting. It would also allow casinos to offer smoking in enclosed, separately vented rooms with the proviso that no worker can be assigned to the room against their will. Cool. Whether to ban smoking is one of the most controversial issues, not only in Atlantic City, but in other states where workers have expressed concerns about the secondhand smoke. They are waging similar campaigns in Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Kansas, and Virginia. Yeah, I mean, you can try this. I think you're going to have a bit of a difficult time, but maybe you can get there with a little bit of luck. I mean, it is an environmental hazard. The worker is there for long periods of time and having to go through it. And so maybe you can get there with some sort of health safety law. You can try. A total smoking ban would place thousands of jobs at risk, questionable, endangering the wage, health, and welfare benefits and retirement benefits of Local 54 and their families, the union wrote. It is noted that in 2008, when Atlantic City Council imposed a short-lived total smoking ban, revenue fell by 19.8% within the first week, leading to enactment of the current 25% smoking ban, or 25% smoking allowance, rather. But of course, what else was happening in 2008? What else was happening in 2008? Revenue in the casino fell by 19.8% in 2008 when Atlantic City passed a smoking ban. What else happened in 2008 that might explain a decrease in spending at casinos? I can't think of anything. 3 workers, including many table game dealers, said that going smoke-free would actually attract customers to offset, which might very well be true. Nicole Vitrol, a bodega or Baraga dealer, or whatever that's pronounced, and one of the leaders of the anti-smoking push, accused Local 454 of being the same as casino management. Instead of fighting for the health and safety of workers, Local 54 is battling in court to allow casinos to keep poisoning their members with toxic secondhand smoke. And that is the end of that story. So that is exciting. Yeah, like what happened about February 2020? What happened about February 2008? What happened roughly Valentine's Day in 2008? Anyone know? Anyone have a memory that goes back that far? Yeah, I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we got. One we discussed earlier and I'm happy to talk about again. All right. Police are making arrests relating to the university protests. Now, as I've stated before and I will state again, I have no problem, well, I have personal problems, but I have no legal problem with you speaking whatever stupid message you want to speak. You're allowed to speak whatever stupid, horrible, not thought out, completely idiotic statement that crosses your mouth. You can say what you want, but time, place, manner restrictions, my friend. You can't, for example, commandeer an administrative building or other buildings or interfere with the ability of the school to school. That's the thing. And you can't, for example, set out encampments and go camping. That's the thing. So yeah, I have no problem with this. It's almost certainly lawful. I have no problem with this. They deserve what they're getting. So just a brief note here. Dozens of police officers in riot gear entered university campus Tuesday night after issuing a dispersal order, multiple times might I add, to protesters gathered outside one of the school's entrances and other places. Officers breached a building occupied by the protesters, there you go, and removed the students from the campus with their hands zip-tied. A police spokesman said multiple people have been arrested. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators who are complete idiots have demanded for weeks that the universities divest from Israeli-linked companies more than 6 months into the war. They can certainly speak their mind, they just can't do it this way. Time, place, manner, they're idiots, their message is stupid, and they broke the law, and I hope justice is coming soon. And that's the end of that story. I have nothing more intelligent to say about that. Let's see what else we got. Okay, this was an interesting one. In deepfake news, this was an interesting one. I probably should do a separate story about this. So note to my mods, maybe we can find more things about this. You know what I was talking about finding clips and stuff, because I think this would be a good one for us to do. So here's a story we can do a video on demand about. All right, so I think this would be good. In deepfake news, a deepfake of a principal's voice is the latest case of an AI being used to make harm. So a co-worker of the principal who didn't like the principal very much made a deep fake of the principal using all kinds of racist language to try to get him fired and stuff. And this stuff is coming, and this is coming soon. This is coming more. So I think that there is more about this. Yeah, there's more about that. So yeah, check TikTok. TikTok is always a gold mine for videos about stupid shit like this. All right, the most recent criminal case involving artificial intelligence emerged last week from a Maryland high school, where police say a principal was framed as racist by a fake recording. The case is yet another reason why everyone, not just politicians, celebrities, should be concerned. At the moment, these deep fakes can be detected, but they're getting better and better, and it won't be too long before they will pass all scrutiny. And I mean, they already are pretty good if you're not paying any attention. And of course, a lie spread can get halfway around the world before the truth puts its shoes on these days. So you have to be careful, you know? Here's so that is a whole thing. Manipulating recordings and images isn't new. Of course, that's true. But the ease of which someone can do this is a recent phenomenon. So the ability to do it, so is also the ability to do it quickly on social media. So yes, audio has been faked, video has been faked, but of course it's getting much, much easier and much, much more simple. The fake audio clip that impersonated the principal is an example of a subset of AI known as generative AI. It can create hyper-realistic new images, increasingly video and audio clips. It's cheaper and easier to use in recent years, which of course lowers the barrier to entry. It's getting cheaper and easier and more effective with every passing day. It's making incredible strides. Particularly over the last year, anyone, and I mean anyone, can go online to find a service, the Berkeley professor said, and either for free or for a few bucks a month, they can upload 60 seconds of someone's voice. Too true. Those seconds can come from a voicemail, social media post, or surreptitious recording. They said machine learning algorithms capture what the person sounds like, and the clone speech is then generated from words typed on a keyboard. Yep. The technology will only get more powerful and easier to use, including video manipulation. We're heading in that direction pretty rapidly. Authorities in Baltimore County say that Mr. Darren, the athletic director at Pikesville High, cloned the principal's voice. The fake recording contained racist and anti-Semitic comments, police say. The sound file appeared in an email and some teachers' inboxes before being spread on social media because, of course, it did. The recording suffered after the individual raised concerns about the work performance and alleged misuse of funds. So the principal went to his athletic director and said, I'm concerned about your work performance. I'm concerned about how money is being spent. And the athletic director decided to use this to defame him. The bogus audio forced the principal to go on leave while police guarded his house because people believed it was true. Angry phone calls inundated the school while hate-filled messages accumulated on social media. Defamation, infliction of emotional distress all day long, and whatever crimes they can dream up with will be fine by me. Detectives asked outside experts to analyze the recording. One said that it contained traces of AI-generated content with human editing after the fact. So yes, at the moment you can sort of tell if you're really paying attention, but those clues are becoming harder and harder to find. A second opinion from a Berkeley professor found that multiple recordings were spliced together, which also seems very plausible. Fareed told the Associated Press that questions remain about how exactly the recording was created in this particular case, and has not confirmed that it's fully AI generated, which it might involve some of his actual speech. That's certainly possible. But given AI's growing capabilities, they say the Maryland case still serves as canary in the coal mine. And how? And how? So yeah, all that is coming soon. Many cases of AI-generated disinformation have been audio. Audio is easier to fake than video, obviously. There's partially because technology's improved so quickly. Yeah, it has. Really, in the last 2-3 years, it's been amazing, the strides that have been had on this domain. It's just been truly revolutionary, for lack of any other word. Human ears can't also always identify the telltale signs of manipulation. Yeah, they're getting pretty good. Sometimes they're really hard to tell. Some people have cloned their voice of purportedly kidnapped children over the phone to get ransom money. That's true too. Sometimes people clone the voice of somebody and call someone else that they love and use the clone voice to say, I've been kidnapped, to try to get ransom money. Ransom without a body, ma'am. That's definitely documented it, for sure. Another case was a chief executive of a company who urgently needed funds. So, yeah. During the last year's New Hampshire primary, AI-generated robocalls impersonating President Joe Biden tried to dissuade Democratic voters from voting. Experts warn of a surge in AI-generated disinformation. But disturbing trends go beyond audio, such as programs that fake nude images of clothed people without their consent, or incidentally, the reverse, which I think is particularly hilarious. I did like that one app creator who created the app to reclothe the thoughts, so that and people were really, really mad about that. I thought that was pretty entertaining. Singer Taylor Swift had also recently been targeted in this, which of course makes sense. Most providers of AI voice generating technology say they prohibit harmful use of the tool, but self-enforcement of course varies. Some vendors require a voice signature or ask users to recite a unique set of sentences before a voice can be cloned. So if you're ever asked to recite a very specific phrase, it might be because of that. Although at this point, there is so much audio of me speaking, I'm not sure what difference it would make. I'm sure I've said every single word in every single phrase somewhere. Bigger tech companies such as Facebook parent Meta and ChatGPT's OpenAI only allow a small group of trusted users to experiment with the technology because of risks of abuse. Farad said there's more that needs to be done. For instance, all companies should require users to submit phone numbers and credit cards so they can trace back files to those who misuse the technology. Well, I don't know what to tell you because phone numbers can be spoofed and credit cards can be stolen. So I'm not sure how much that helps, but there you go. Very good, A. Hedinger, plus 1 point. My voice is my passport. Please verify me. Yep, classic sneakers. I got you. Plus 1 point. Another idea is to require recordings and images to carry a digital watermark, which I'm not even sure how that would be done, because you could also just get rid of it. You could remove it, or you could blend it out of existence, right? So if you're thinking about some sort of hidden thing in the audio signature that you could detect, the easiest thing to do is just insert random noise in those bands so that it's no longer detectable. So I wouldn't know about that. You modify the audio in ways that are imperceptible to the human auditory system, but in a way that can be identified by a piece of software downstream. Good luck with that. The CEO for Center of Democracy and Technology, which is an organization that I support, said the most effective intervention is law enforcement action. More consumer education is also needed, but I'm not sure consumer education is going to do the trick. Because, again, this technology is coming, and it's coming hard and fast. Another focus should be urging responsible conduct among AI companies, but it's not as simple as banning it, because even if somehow we tried to do that, there are other countries in the world. And this technology is not going anywhere. It can be complicated to add legal liability because in so many instances, there might be positive or affirming uses of the technology. Yeah, trying to go after the technology itself rather than the users is tricky because, of course, it has a valid legal uses. And, we don't typically go after the maker of something just because it's used illegally. But I'm sure someone's going to try. Yet another challenge is finding international agreement on ethics relating to this. Good luck getting a treaty on this fast enough for it to matter. People use AI differently depending on what country they're in. It's not just governments, it's the people, and culture matters. Yep, all that stuff is happening. Yeah, I agree with you. The sock satcher. It's easy enough to get rid of visual watermarks already. Yeah, you can filter it out, or you can blend it into nothing, right? If you know that if you don't want to distort the audio, they're going to be in bands that people can't typically hear, and then it's easy enough to just insert noise at random parts and get rid of the signature. So, I don't think the watermark thing is going to do the trick. I don't think the watermark thing is going to do the trick. All right. Okay. Art Shaw asks a question. You're watching my live coverage of the Reed case and had to pause it and it's gone. You're not hallucinating. I have to make an edit to the video. And I've been having trouble making an edit. So I'm going to try again and hopefully the video will be back. I apologize that it's offline right now, but I need to make an edit and hopefully it will come back soon. So, yay. In somewhat positive news for marijuana, the marijuana change train is well on its way, it seems. The DEA has apparently finished its work relating to this and has sent it off to OMB, which I don't understand how OMB is relevant to this. I really don't get that part. That part confuses me. But here's what happened for those of you who forgot. The Biden administration asked HHS to please reclassify marijuana or recommend the reclassification of marijuana. Let me back up a step. All right. Marijuana is controlled by the Controlled Substances Act. Okay. The Controlled Substances Act sets out a schedule for various drugs, and Congress set those limits. However, Congress also gave authority to HHS and the DEA to reschedule drugs using their own mechanisms. So this is authority that Congress gave them. So you need the sign off of both HHS and DEA. So HHS gave its recommendation a couple months ago, and now DEA is apparently finished with the work and sent it to OMB for some reason that I'm not quite sure. And we're looking at getting it reclassified very short. Let's read the story. The US DEA is moving towards reclassifying marijuana. The Justice Department proposal would recognize the medical use of cannabis but not legalize it for recreational use, which makes sense because it would still be a controlled substance. The proposal would move marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which is a pretty big deal because, among other things, as the article is about to tell you later, this allows for deductions for businesses. Right now, you can't deduct your business expenses for marijuana-related businesses because it's illegal. So in all those states that have marijuana dispensaries, the marijuana dispensaries themselves cannot write off their business expenses like any other business can do. So it's much more expensive. Plus, banking is more difficult because it's illegal. Finding a bank that will do it. So Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 are tightly regulated, and Schedule 3 is where it becomes less regulated in this domain. So you still can't do the tax write-off for Schedule 2, and you can for Schedule 3. So going to Schedule 3 is a pretty big deal. Yeah, the Office of Management and Budget. I kept using the acronym, I'm sorry. Anyways, let's go on. The proposal must be reviewed by the White House Office of Management and Budget. I'm not quite sure why, but okay, fine. And then undergo a public comment period. It's going to be published in the Federal Register like any other rule. And review from an administrative judge, a potentially lengthy process. Not particularly lengthy. It'll be fine. Still, the switch is considered paradigm shifting and is very exciting, according to Vince Solwowski, who is an Oregon-based cannabis and psychedelics attorney who runs a well-known legal blog on these topics. I can't emphasize how much of a big news it is. I tend to agree it's a pretty big news. It came after President Joe Biden asked both HHS and the Attorney General, which oversees DEA, last year to review how marijuana is classified. Both the DEA and HHS work for the president, so, please reclassify this. Marijuana, which is currently on Schedule 1, puts it on the same par as heroin or LSD, but not cocaine, incidentally, or meth, which I think is hilarious. Meth is only Schedule 2. Meth is legal. Meth can be prescribed. You can get prescription meth. So there's that. Yeah. Biden, who is a Democrat in case you didn't know, supports legalizing medical marijuana where appropriate, consistent with medical and scientific evidence. That's why it's important for this independent review to go through. Fine. The AP correspondent has reported on the proposal for the federal government to reclassify marijuana. According to the proposal, Schedule 3 drugs, which also include ketamine and anabolic steroids, are still controlled substances. So yes, steroids are Schedule 3. Ketamine is Schedule 3. So yes, those are still controlled, but, legally. Of course, they're subject to various rules relating to medical use and criminal prosecution for anyone who traffics in the drug. So it'll still be illegal, but it's a start. I'll take what I can get. No changes are expected to the medical marijuana program now licensed in various states, but it's unlikely they would meet the federal production, record keeping, prescribing, and other requirements for Schedule 3. Yeah, so that's probably true. So you will be able to get legal prescription pot from your friendly neighborhood doctor, and there will still be the recreational trade. There haven't been many federal prosecutions for simple possession, even under the status, but reclassification would not have an immediate impact on people already in the system. But, President Biden pardoned a lot of those people anyway. So I'm not sure what's left to be done, but sure, some people might still be in jail. Because marijuana is Schedule 1, it's been very difficult to conduct clinical studies. That too. It's been very difficult to do studies on it because of its schedule. It has no possible medical use by definition because it's Schedule 1. And because it has no possible medical use, we can't do studies on it because it has no possible medical use. Yeah. Schedule 22 calls for more research, but also makes it very difficult to actually do the research. Yep. Schedule 3 drugs are earlier to study, though reclassification wouldn't immediately reverse all barriers to study. Yeah. It will be a thing. Among other unknowns, whether researchers will be able to study marijuana from state licensed dispensaries and how the Federal Food and Drug Administration might oversee it. Yeah. Reducing to Schedule 3 will open the door to be able to conduct research with human subjects and cannabis. It certainly will, perhaps under some restricted terms, but it definitely will be heading into that direction. Under the federal tax code, businesses involved in trafficking of marijuana or any other Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substance cannot deduct rent, payroll, or other expenses. As I mentioned, they can't deduct ordinary business expenses. So that makes those businesses quite a bit more expensive, as you'd expect. Industry groups say the tax rate often ends up at 70% or more. Yeah, it's pretty brutal because you can't do the deductions. The deduction prohibition does not apply to Schedule 3 drugs, so that would make all the marijuana dealers much more happy. They say it would treat them like other industries, which it would, and help them compete against illegal competitors that are frustrating licenses. Yeah, by making it much more easy, it will make, the businesses much more valuable. That, of course, will make the state-funded programs stronger. It could also mean more cannabis promotion and advertising if the cost could be deducted. I look forward to the marijuana commercials on TV. That should be hilarious. Ask your doctor if marijuana is right for you. That's going to be a very interesting day. I'm excited. Rescheduling apparently will not directly involve another problem with banks because the federally regulated institutions are wary of the legal status. The industry has been looking towards a measure called the Safe Banking Act that has passed the House but not the Senate. So it may or may not help with banking, but we'll see. Indeed, there are others, including a national anti-legislation group, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. President Kevin Sabbat, a former Obama administrator drug policy official, said HHS recommendation flies in the face of science and reeks of politics. I don't know about that one, my friend. I don't know about that one. And gives a regrettable nod to the industries desperately looking for legitimacy. All right, let me help you out on this real easy. Okay? By definition, anything Schedule 1 cannot have medical use. I think it's difficult to say that marijuana does not have medical use. Now, I'll give this to the Obama administration. It was one of my favorite little things that happened. Right at the end of the Obama administration, it was like in the last week, or it might have been the last 2 weeks. It was right at the end of the Obama administration. The DEA released a paper saying why marijuana should still be Schedule 1 and showing why it doesn't have any medical use. And I'll have to give them this. They tried really, really hard. They tried really, really hard to show that it didn't have any medical use. So whoever at the DEA wrote that really understood the assignment and really tried to make it work. So an interesting little chick. But unless you're like hell-bent on trying to prove it doesn't have medical use, I think that's a difficult road to hoe. That it doesn't have any medical use. So it doesn't belong in Schedule 1. I like categories. I like things that belong in categories. That's what I like. I like rules, and I like rules that make sense. So if the rule is it has to not have medical use, marijuana does not belong in Schedule 1. So you should do one of two things. You should either change the definition of Schedule 1, or you should move marijuana out of Schedule 1. But one of these things is not like the other. So something's got to change, man. I'm just saying. That's my position on the issue. Just saying. Some legalization advocates say rescheduling weed is too incremental. I assume they would like it descheduled, and I assume they'll say all those things in the Federal Register. Although, to be quite honest, I think they should take what they can get and run and fight another day. But that's me. They want to keep the focus on removing it completely from the controlled substances list, which does not include such things as alcohol or tobacco. Yeah. Alcohol and tobacco are regulated by a different agency than the DEA. Anyone happen to know what agency regulates alcohol and tobacco? Anyone want to take a guess? Paul Aramoto, the deputy director of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, said that simply reclassifying marijuana would be perpetuating the same existent divide between state and federal marijuana policies. Yep, that would be the one. Rescheduling just rebrands prohibition. Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, but sure. Rather than giving an all clear to the state licensees and putting a definite closure to the decades of arrest. Schedule 3 is going to leave it in this amorphous, mucky middle where people are not going to understand the danger of it still being federally illegal. Well, that's on them a little bit because, I mean, I'm just saying. All right. And that brings us to the end of that story. Yeah, it's not like there's an agency specifically named after them. It's like, yeah, it's not like there's an agency specifically named for them. So that does narrow it down somewhat, right? Yeah. And that is the end of that story. All right. In Cali the bee fish news. Cali the bee fish has been bad. Cali the bee fish has been bad. And has created more problems. A toddler went to their parents saying, I think there are monsters in my room. There were bees. Lots and lots of bees. Callie, you don't belong in the walls of the home with the toddler. That's not where you belong, Callie. Don't go there. A mom in Charlotte made a terrifying discovery after her little girl told her she had monsters in her room. Ashley Massa's class posted a video on TikTok showing the monsters turned out to be 50,000 bees buzzing in the walls of the daughter's bedroom with the caption, "What nightmares are made of." Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. Class told people in an interview that she and her husband thought their daughter was experiencing a little regression because they just had a new baby. After noticing a few bees in the attic, the couple hired a pest control company to take a look at their farmhouse. Thermal imaging from the beekeeper showed the heat behind the wall. Oh dear. At first, I thought it was a body, she told People. I was like, what's that? And he says, I think it's a hive. When the beekeeper opened up the wall, well, then we have all kinds of problems. We didn't even have time to get stuff out of the room, she told Good Morning America. Class documented the experience on TikTok, explaining the beekeepers ultimately removed tens of thousands of bees and a honeycomb that itself weighed 100 pounds. Callie has been busy. In the videos, class said honey has oozed down their walls of their room, but it looked like blood because it was really, really dark. It's going to be difficult to sleep in there for a while, I think, ma'am. They are able to keep the queen alive, that was definitely my predominant concern, and relocated the surviving bees to a bee sanctuary. See, that's where Callie and the friends should be. Class told People there's about $20,000 of damage to the home that will not be covered by insurance because, well, yeah, I mean, that doesn't seem like that would be an insurance-based thing, so that's a problem. There's still a lot of work to get done to get the house back together, so Callie the bee fish has been buzzing in a home, in a toddler's room. Callie has been bad. Don't do that. So that's what's happening there. All right, turning our attention to our friends in the United Kingdom. We're looking at indeterminate sentences in the UK. Not something I know a lot about, but we're going to read about it and try to learn something about how the UK does criminal laws. Okay, apparently a man named Martin Myers tried to steal a cigarette and has spent 18 years in prison. Somehow I suspect there might be more to the story. So let's read more. In 2006, Martin Myers got in a scrape over a cigarette. He asked a young man if he had a spare cigarette. The man declined to give it to him. Myers came from a well-known family. The man, Myers said, made derogatory comments about his family, so he gave up the niceties and threatened to punch him if he didn't hand over a cigarette. So we have assault. We have assault because we've made a threat. The young man ran away. He then went to the police and told them what happened. The police were familiar with Myers. Yeah, I kind of suspected there would be more of the story. The police knew who this guy was. Yeah, that seems about right. He had previously had convictions for dangerous driving, assault, theft, and burglary. He was arrested, charged, and convicted of attempted street robbery. That makes sense. He threatened assault to take an item from the person. That's legally robbery. That's what robbery is. When you take an item from a person, that's robbery. So attempted robbery works for me. On the 8th of March 2006, he was given a minimum time of 19 months and 27 days. Okay. Myers, who is now 42, has spent 18 years in jail for the attempted robbery of that cigarette. He was given an indeterminate sentence known as imprisonment for public protection. Well, I mean, he does have a bit of a recidivist streak, so I mean, there is that. That means that while he could be released after 19 months and 27 days, he could also be jailed for up to 99 years. So yeah, they gave him essentially a life with parole sentence with a minimum of 19 months for the street robbery, in addition to the other things. Okay. Indeterminate sentences were first used as a sentence in England and Wales in 2005, having been introduced by the Labour Party in 2003 to detain and imprison people who pose a significant risk of causing harm to the public. Okay. I mean, that's fine. It was a controversial sentence, I would imagine. Critics say that jailing people for what they could do rather than what they have done contradicts the basic principle of justice that people are innocent until proven guilty. No, I wouldn't necessarily go that far. Because as we're trying to determine your sentence, one of the basic principles for which we put people in prison is protection of the public, isolation. It's one of the principal reasons we keep you away, to keep you away from the good people. Isolation theory. Common, well known, no muss, no fuss. So how much isolation do you need is going to be based on how much of a threat you are, which is informed by your criminal history. So, there's that. I agree. It reminds me of a 3 strikes law. I agree. It sounds very similar to a 3 strikes law. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Maybe don't commit multiple felonies. That'd be great. In September 2012, the European Court of Human Rights, is the UK still part of the European Court of Human Rights? I honestly don't know how that works. The European Court of Human Rights ruled that detaining people with IPPs beyond their initial term indefinitely was arbitrary and therefore unlawful if reasonable access to rehabilitation was not provided, whatever the hell that means. On December the 3rd of 2012, IPP was abolished, but while the sentence could no longer be handed out, it wasn't abolished for those serving. Last week, David Blunkett, who introduced the sentence as Home Secretary, told me, what happened with this sentence is the biggest regret I've had in terms of outcome of all the many things I was involved in the 8 years I was in government. Okay, neat. Today, more than 11 years after IPPs were banned, and 16 years after his minimum sentence, which they call a tariff for some reason, because they want to be cool, Myers is almost one of 3,000 people imprisoned in England and Wales with no release date in sight. Myers' mom, Mary, tells me I won't be able to miss her house. There's a big black caravan in the garden, and we've got a black door. She is the personification of a matriarch. Okay, so now we're going to lean on the feelings. I'm prepared. Make me feel. The mother of 14 children, she's tried to hold the family together as best as possible for more than half a century. Despite living in England most of her life, she has retained a strong Irish accent and speaks with a gravel smoker's rasp. She wears a gray dressing gown with studs all over her jumper, which also has studs. She has a magnificent presence. You want to sell this woman any more to me? You want to sell this woman any more to me? Okay. Tough, love, and loyal. If you're one of her, she'd always be there for you, just as she's been there for Myers. Wow, the feels are real. She showed me a photograph of two cute boys with dark brown eyes. There's Martin with her twin brother. Patrick lives in London. He's doing okay. Myers, however, is doing anything but okay. Like so many IPP prisoners, Myers has an history of self-harming in jail. IPP prisoners are more likely than any sentence group in the prison population to seriously self-harm, which doesn't necessarily speak very well for his ability to be released to the public if he's this much a threat to himself. I'm just saying. In prison, Myers injured his hand so badly, he needed a 5-hour operation. That doesn't sound very promising. His legs are so damaged, he was told an operation could just make things worse. He's tried taking his own life twice while serving the sentence. I'm very worried, love, Mary says. Very, very worried he's going to end his life in that place. 90% of IP prisoners have done so. Okay. I mean, there's that. I guess the UK doesn't believe in the intermittent sentences or the European Court of Justice. Did she always worry for Myers? God knows, she said. He was fun, independently minded, and had a zest for life. He was a happy boy. He's a good singer, but a great dancer. He liked reggae music. He was a little bit wild. He'd do things that other kids wouldn't do. Martin would do anything. Love. In the evening, they'd make a ramp, and they'd drive their bikes in the air and over to the other side. And they make a swing over the river. I hate to tell you, but a lot of kids do that. He was a daredevil. They'd light a big fire outside in the evening and play around it. Where'd he get his wildness from? She smiles. Probably me, love. I was always wild when I was young. Mom has stories. I worked on the land. I cut trees down still. Mary's in her late 70s. The family moved around Britain in 2 caravans. London, Manchester, Birmingham, Wales, Scotland. The other children slept in the smaller one, while the younger children slept with Mary and their father in the big one. They're sleeping in RVs. Mary admits that she had little time for conventional schooling. The family was always on the move, so it was impossible for the children to settle down early on. 30 years ago, they moved to Luton, where Mary's husband was suffering with his lungs and struggling for work, gardening, and in a scrapyard. Man, they're really making me feel this, man. They're really making me feel. This is sycophantically manipulative, and I'm here for it. So we tried to settle down, but she says there was so much discrimination against travelers from neighborhoods, strangers, schools, and police. The police gave us a lot of trouble when we came in here, an awful lot of trouble. Then they laid up for a while, but it started down again. She said the school victimized traveler children. Meyer was one of the number of her kids who were permanently excluded without having learned to read or write. Why? Why was he excluded? I want to know more things. Mary, who is also illiterate, has a great way with words. I mean, of course she does. She's here with her friend Ann McCaster, a support worker who's helping to fight for the release of Myers. Martin was around 11 the last time he went to school. I think the kids were treated unfairly. The other kids used to call him names, Mary said. Do you mind if I smoke a cigarette, love? Do you mind, Anne? She looks at her and laughs. You're used to it. The kids were called pikey and treated like the scum of the earth. As they were in school, Myers and Patrick worked with their father. At the age of 9 or 10, they used to drive lorries, which is a truck, and cars. They used to drive to go for water and stuff. They'd have great fun. We were free as birds. We didn't worry about big bills. We just worried about the police coming to move us on. At 18, Myers got married. By the time he was in prison on the IPP sentence, he had 2 children. Mary said that being a father changed him and calmed him down. I mean, not that much. He was a good dad. The kids were everything to him. He stopped being a daredevil. The storytelling is real. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? She knows Myers was wrong to threaten the young man over the cigarette. The first time he went to the police station, he said Myers had threatened him when he refused to give a cigarette. He then returned to the police, this time adding Myers had threatened him with a knife. He said he had seen Martin with a little spud knife. Well, Martin never carried a knife. Uh-huh. Okay. From prison, Myers tells me it's true he threatened the young man, but insists talk of the knife is nonsense. I got into a bit of an argument when he asked whether I was a traveler. I grabbed his hand and said, give me the cigarette or I'll knock you out. See, now we have battery. Because we've touched him with the threats. That's robbery. Yep. I did say that. I admit that. He went there and wrote a statement that night, and then he goes back to the police station that day. He went to the police station and wrote it out as a statement? That's not really a great idea. I wouldn't recommend doing that legally. That sounds like a bad plan. The second statement, he says the first is as the first statement, except there's one thing different. He said, I have a knife up my sleeve. I never, Simon. I never had a knife. Wow. Wow. The bleeding heart of this is so really real. This is amazing. I agree with none of your business. All that's missing is he was a good boy. He was fixing to go to college to be a doctor. I'm here for it. +1 channel point. I'm here for it very much. Knife or no knife, it's hard to believe Myers is in his 19th year of the indeterminate sentence for attempting to steal a cigarette. You mean the robbery? He tries to keep things positive for his mother's sake, but it's a challenge that's often beyond him. His father, a brother and sister have all died while he's been inside, and he wasn't allowed to attend their funerals. I mean, that tends to happen when you're in prison. Myers claimed that prison officials have told him this is because they don't like attending gypsy funerals. His greatest fear is that Mary will die while he's in prison. Mary's greatest fear is that he will kill himself in prison. Myers is one of young men who were handed indeterminate sentences with short minimum time. According to governmental data, 99% of the IPP are prisoners. I mean, I've said this for years, man. There's inequality, man. We've got to get those 50-50 ratios, man. Where are all the women? They're being discriminated against. We got to make sure that they get exactly what the men get, man. Don't you know? We got to have equality. And more than 1/3 of IPPs were given to less serious offenders, jailed on a minimum sentence of 2 years or fewer. Wayne Bell was given a 2-year minimum when he was 17 for punching another youth and stealing his bike. He has served 17 years. Lawrence Owen was 17 when he set fire to his home, which we otherwise known as arson, trying to kill himself after losing 3 members of his family to cancer. Don't do the arson. He then phoned police to admit what he's done. Don't do that either. Owen was given a minimum sentence of 2 years and served 13 years. Kevin Speakman, who spent his childhood in and out of care homes and has mental health and addiction, was given a 2-year tariff for arson. Don't do the arson. He killed himself in a segregation 9 years later and was only 30. Wow. Myers has been refused parole numerous times. Well, I can't imagine why, if he's a threat to himself and harming himself. Can't imagine why that they might be concerned about letting him out, among others, that he might be a threat to himself and the public. Can't imagine a reason why. He believes this is at least partially down to the mistakes made by the parole board and prison service. In 2021, he was wrongfully accused of being a sex offender in a letter sent by the parole board. From then, he was a marked man. Because Martin is illiterate, he got his cellmate to read it about what it said about him, and then that went around the prison, McMaster said. He was beaten up so badly because of this letter, and the stigma doesn't go away. It will never go away. It always comes up. If Martin has an argument with someone, they'll say, You're a sex offender. You're a pedophile. He can't get away from it. He was hospitalized twice as a result of the assaults. The liberal on this is so real. This is so amazing, man. Here apparently is a picture, I suppose. Yeah, Martin on the right with his brother. Okay, how are you doing, Martin? Myers said the false allegations made a prison life impossible. I've been spat on, called a nonce, and a rapist. I mean, well, one of those things seems a lot more severe than the other. I mean, it just seems to me. And it wasn't me. When they wrote the letter in 2013 giving reasons for being knocked back, they put it in there. They said, the reason we're knocking you back for 2 years is drug misuse and sexually violent offenses. He made a complaint to prison services in June 2015 after he was attacked by 3 men because of his supposed sexual offense. Sexual offenders are so vulnerable in prison, they're often kept separately from the rest of the population. The Ministry of Justice admitted its mistake and paid him $21,000 in compensation. He's been attacked a number of times since, his assailants still smearing him as a sex offender. Neat. Myers has also been falsely accused of taking a hostage at High Down Prison. In a letter seen by The Guardian, the head of security and operations at the prison wrote, "This is not something that's happened while Mr. Myers has been High Down," adding that he could not see any reason why it was placed in the file. So maybe they've got filing problems over there too. Myers said the record is full of false accusations. I had 178 nickings on my sheet. Myers talks quietly, patiently explaining prison terminology. You know what a nicking is? An adjudication. If you get in trouble in prison, you're placed on report in front of the governor. That's called adjudication. We call it nickings. You got nicked. I understand the vernacular. And they put 178 adjudications on my form that didn't belong to me. I've also got an apology from probation saying I'm hot-watered. Someone thrown boiling water on a prisoner's face when I didn't. So there's just lots of mistakes in your file? I don't know, man. Something seems odd to me. That seems like a lot of mistakes in one man's file. I mean, dude, what's going on here? I'm having trouble with this. In a letter seen by The Guardian, a probation officer writes, I'm enclosing a copy of your amended report. I've taken out the part about the adjudication in the hot water. It was my mistake. I'm sorry. If that's true, what is happening in this system that just leads to these random mistakes in prisoners' files, man? That's a whole thing. Myers happens to phone the IPP campaigner Donna Money when I'm with her. It just happens to. Her brother, Tommy Nickel, killed himself in 2015 while serving the IPP sentence. Money co-founded the IPP campaigning group UNGRIP and is in frequent contact with Myers and other IPP prisoners. His long-term mission is to get IPP prisoners resentenced, but with her more immediate purpose is to ensure that vulnerable prisoners such as Myers retains hope and don't kill themselves. Myers, who's on speakerphone, says the parole board letter falsely alleging he was a sexual offender caused his marriage to fall apart. The minute they put me down as a sexual offender and I got beaten up a few times, my wife looked at me differently and I looked at my wife differently. Every time I had a visit with her, I thought, does she think I'm a wrong one? Does she think I'm a nonce or a rapist? Man, they really take nonce seriously over there, don't they? Our relationship went downhill from there and we got divorced. I've lost my wife, my marriage, my kids, everything because of what they did. Myers is no longer in touch with his children. Wow. It's just amazing. He believes the letter from the parole board alleging he was a sex offender was a genuine mistake, along apparently with all the other mistakes. But he's not prepared to give the benefit of the doubt over allegations made by prison officers. When they put me down as a sex offender in the letter, that was accident. But 178 adjudications in hot water and hostage taking was definitely done, I think. This was to knock me down a few years. He is convinced that prison officials exploited his illiteracy to make the false allegation. This is so much. What they're doing is putting stuff in my parole dossier, knowing I can't read and write and I can't get an inmate to read my dossier after what happened with the stuff saying I was an offender. That could get me killed. The Ministry of Justice has declined to comment on the allegations. Since 1993, the prison sentence is yada, 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 and that will bring us to the end of the story. That was amazing. That was a lot of a write-up. That was an amazing write-up. And that brings us to the end of that tale. All right, let's see what else we got in the stories list. All right, in the Onion goes legitimate. The Onion has a new owner, and the buyer's name leads like it's straight out of one of the articles. Chicago-based firm Global Tetrahedron, which shares its name with a mock corporation that served as a long-running gag on the satirical news site and was featured in the Staffer's 1999 book, Our Dumb Century, has purchased The Onion. GO Media, which has owned The Onion since 2019, sold the site after recently saying goodbye to other properties such as the AV Club and Deadspin. Global Tetrahedron is composed of 4 digital media veterans who have a profound love for The Onion and comedy-based content, wrote the CEO. The firm, according to a tongue-in-cheek section on its website, is committed to control in all forms and describes itself as pragmatic, focused, bloodthirsty, and fanatical. I appreciate that. The agreement apparently will keep the Onion staff intact, which is nice, and also in Chicago, something they insist to be part of the deal. The firm is owned by ex-Twilio CEO Jeff Larson, according to The Times, while CEO is Ben Collins, a former NBC senior reporter. Collins, in a post on X, wrote that the new owners are bringing back the Onion News Network. That's great. I would love to see some of their videos. They produce some great stuff. And share the wealth. Basically, we're going to let them do whatever they want. The deals, financial terms, were not disclosed. And that is the end of that story. Thank you for the 170 of you who are currently here. Hope you're having a great time. I'm having a great time, and I hope you are as well. Okay. Apparently, a town in Japan does not want tourists. And they're trying to block views of Mount Fuji because of how much they don't want tourists. So, okay, that's a thing. I am not even going to try to pronounce this town's name. So don't even ask. We're just going to call it Town Japan, okay? The town's name is now Town, all right? The town of Town Japan has had enough tourists. Known for its number of scenic photos spots that offered a near-perfect shot of Japanese iconic Mount Fuji, the town on Tuesday began constructing a large black screen on a stretch of a sidewalk to block the view of the mountain. The reason apparently is misbehaving foreign tourists. Town is a town built on tourism, and I welcome many visitors, and the town welcomes them too. But there are many things about their manners that are working, says the owner of a cafe serving Japanese sweets near the soon-to-be blocked photo shop. The person mentioned littering, crossing roads with busy traffic, ignoring traffic lights, trespassing onto private property. She isn't unhappy, though. 80% of her customers are foreign. They're not coming back anymore because the views are going to be blocked. Here is a picture of Mount Fuji, soon to no longer be available as a picture of Mount Fuji. Very sad. I mean, it is a good view. So, I mean, I sort of understand. Her neighborhood suddenly became a popular spot about 2 years ago, apparently after a photo taken at a particular angle showed Mount Fuji in the background, as if sitting atop a local convenience store, became a social media sensation known as Mount Fuji Larson. The mostly foreign tourists have since crowded the small area, triggering a wave of concerns and complaints from residents about visitors blocking a narrow sidewalk, taking photos on a busy road, or walking onto neighbors' properties. I mean, this just seems like a thing where the town could probably do this with a little bit of management, some signs and some, smart barriers that, corral the tourists, a little bit of engineering to help keep the tourists in the place that they're supposed to be. I'm sure Japan could figure it out. But we're going to go with blocking Mount Fuji. That seems like a lot. In Europe, concerns over tourists overcrowding historic cities led Venice last week to launch a pilot program to charge day trippers a fee. I mean, I don't think that's going to help very much. If it's a $5 fee, I don't imagine that's going to dissuade people very much. Authorities say it will dissuade visitors from arriving on peak days. No, it won't. It's $5 and make the city more livable. Town has tried other methods, sign urging visitors not to run into the road, and using designated crosswalks in English, Chinese, Thai, and Korean, and even having a security guard, none worked. Again, try harder. I think with a little engineering, you might be able to get this done. The black mesh net, which completed in mid-May, will be 2.5 meters high and 20 meters long, and will almost completely block the view of Mount Fuji. I'm going to need a really big selfie stick so I can get. I need at least a 9-foot tall. I need at least a 9-foot tall selfie stick so I can still get my view. Dozens of tourists gathered Tuesday taking photos, even though Mount Fuji was not in sight. Anthony Hawk from France thought the screen is an overreaction. Too big a solution for a subject not as big, even if tourists are making trouble. Doesn't look right to me. A 26-year-old suggested setting up road barriers for safety. Yes, a little engineering sounds like a good plan. A little engineering to get people to go where they're supposed to go. A little engineering. Contact some Vegas casinos or something about this if you need some help. How do you get crowds to go where you want them to go? A little engineering, some subtle signals, man, you can get some work done. But Paul, a 34-year-old visitor from the UK, was sympathetic to the local concern. While traveling in Japan the last few weeks, he's seen tourism really ramp up here in Japan from what we've seen. I can see why people who live and work here might want to do something about that, she said, noting many were taking pictures even when the mountain was not in view. That is the power of social media. Yeah, that's what I would do. That's what I would do, Bob. That's what I would absolutely do. I would have a convenience store located right next by and be like, here is a 9-foot tall selfie stick. Please buy my 9-foot tall selfie stick so you can continue to get your photographs. I would do it. I would do it. It sounds great. Foreign visitors have flocked to Japan since the pandemic border restrictions were lifted, in part due to the weaker yen. Last year, Japan had more than 25 million visitors, and the number from this year is expected to surpass nearly 32 million, a record from 2019, according to Japan National Tourism Organization. And the government, that is the Japanese government, wants more tourists. A ladder rental company. Yeah, we'll get a hydraulic lift. We'll have a staircase. I'll have a two-story thing, and they can look out the second window. Whatever, man. I'll find a solution. While the booming tourism has helped the industry, it has triggered complaints from residents in the popular tourist destinations such as Kyoto. In Kyoto, a famous geisha district recently decided to close some private property alleys. I mean, there you go, right? That's like closing some alleys so people don't go down the alleys. Sounds like, a reasonable solution. So that is some of the things that are happening in Japan. And that is the end of that story, or as much as I want to read anyway, which is the same thing. What an exciting story. Let's see what else we got today. All right. Do we end with Florida Man? What the hell is this story? Okay. All right. In Touch My Sausage for good luck news, the Twins have a home run sausage that they believe is magical and allowing them to have success in their game. Okay. The Minnesota Twins are no stranger to unique home run celebrations. Last season, the team introduced a fishing vest and a toy fishing pole to the dugout. This year, it's none other than the Midwestern delicacy, the summer sausage, fueling the 8-game winning streak. In Thursday's matchup against the White Sox, the Twins faced a 2-0 deficit in the bottom of the 6th inning. Then, hitting coach David Pumpkins brought a Cloverdale Foods tangy summer sausage into the dugout and beckoned his players to tap it before they hit. Okay. The presence of the sausage ignited a flurry of hits, including back-to-back homers. After Carlos Santana homered in the 8th, Jeffers tossed the sausage to the first baseman on return to the dugout, and the home run celebration was born. The sausage is magic. The sausage is magic, and by giving worship to the sausage, all your problems will be solved. It was a bad toss. I need to get a little higher, Jeffrey said. So we'll work on our alley-oop skills. Something, something, if you touch my sausage, you'll also have good luck. Something, something, exit joke. Since then, the sausage has been by the Twins' side, and they have plenty of success to show for it. After sweeping the White Sox, Minnesota went to Los Angeles, where they told 32 runs and 45 hits to win 3 straight against the Angels. They beat Chicago 3-2 on Monday, when Max Kepler had a tie-breaking single in the 9th inning. The sausage has been traveling with them in a Ziploc bag shoved into a shoe. Okay. When it comes to their upcoming games in Toronto, it's unclear whether the sausage will make it through customs, though they're confident they can find a way. All right. Okay. In contrast to other Major League Baseball dugout celebrations, the Twins' choice is unfortunately perishable. I don't know, it's a sausage. It can last a while. Jeffrey said they're working on locating a fresh sausage for every series. I mean, I would prefer a loyalty to the same sausage, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink, wink. It's bringing us a lot of hits and runs, so I'm all for it. The sausage is magic. I'm slightly concerned the package is going to open up. The thing hasn't been refrigerated in many days, and there's no doubt that whenever the thing's open, whoever's touching it is in deep trouble. Jeffers echoed his friend. He doesn't want another epidemic. We don't want the Minnesota's Twins sausage to start a worldwide crisis. So far, it's hard to tell whether the sausage will supersede the vest from the fishing vest we mentioned earlier in good luck capabilities. Jeffrey says the team hasn't learned enough about the sausage yet, and they need to get more in touch with it to see what's going to provide them. It's the idea of the sausage. It's the meaning behind the sausage, he said. We're going to learn more about the sausage as the games go by. When asked if he thinks the sausage lore would distract the players from improving where they were a week ago, he said he didn't seem concerned. He emphasized how the sausage has fueled a winning mindset, which is benefiting the Twins now. The season's too grueling and baseball's too hard of a sport not to have fun once in a while, the coach said. Okay. Magic sausage is leading the Twins to victory. Oh, okay. All right, fine. Okay. All right, in online seals go bad. In online seals go bad. A man was able to buy a $14,000 pair of Cartier earrings for $14 after a website price glitch. Yeah, that's not going to work. He's not going to get his earrings, right? It's a pure mistake. It wasn't a real offer. He can't get the earrings, but he's going to try. The 27-year-old managed to snag $14,000 Cartier earrings for $14 due to a pricing error. The man, who is a Mexican citizen, said he was scrolling through social media when he noticed the 18-karat rose gold Clash D Cartier earrings on the jeweler's website. Cartier made a mistake and listed the diamond earrings for $14. He said he broke out in a cold sweat after seeing the officer. He decided to not order one, but 2 sites. After a few months of going back and forth with the jeweler, Cartier offered him a bottle of champagne and said, he's not going to get the earrings. I mean, at least he wouldn't under U.S. law. I don't know about Mexican law. Maybe Mexican law is different on such subjects. But yeah, you wouldn't get them under U.S. law. It was a mistake. It wasn't a real offer, right? You have to have intent to make the offer. And it was a mistake. It wasn't a real offer. So it doesn't count. At least under U.S. law. I've had the worst luck in the world, and never made any money. And what I have is because I bought it, he wrote on social media. He finally apparently got the earrings for $14. Good for him. I guess Mexican law is different. I guess he gets the earrings. He posted a video of himself unboxing the luxury items. He says he gave one of them to his mother. It feels great, and it's cool not to be the underdog. Good for him. He got his earrings for $14. Good for him. Does the law of the place of the order made supersede the law of where the item is shipped from? Good question. You're talking about conflicts of law, which is a whole nother subject, right? And I don't know the answer to that question under relevant law. So I don't know. But it's a good question. The most operative question would be like, where's the contract formed? But yeah, you're talking about conflicts of law. I imagine Cartier's website says something, but I'm not necessarily sure the Mexican government sees it that way. So yeah, fun times. That's a whole subject unto itself, but a very good question. That's a very good question. It's not an easy answer. All right. All right. Now, we talked earlier about the priest with the gambling problem. The priest apparently did not know about an exciting new gambling option that's available to him. If the priest had known about the exciting new gambling option that's available to him, perhaps he wouldn't have stolen so much money from the parish. Dave and Buster's is going to start letting customers bet on arcade games. Wow. 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 That's a thing. Wow. Customers at Dave and Buster's apparently are going to be able to start betting on skee ball. CNBC says the arcade giant is offering social wagering on its app. Patrons will be able to make a $5 wager on the Hot Shots basketball game, a skee ball competition, or other arcade game. How is this legal? The betting function is expected to be launched in the next few months. According to the press release, Dave & Buster's recently partnered with a gamification software company. Is it legal because you can't convert them back into money? Maybe that's why it's legal, because you can't convert it back into money. I don't know how this works. I don't know what's going on. We're thrilled to work with the gaming company on this new thing, the senior vice president said. The betting feature will be available to Dave & Buster's loyalty members who are 18 or older. According to the company who's making the betting app, the skills-based games will not be subject to the same licenses and regulations they face with games of chance. That's fair enough. That is fair enough. I mean, there is a distinction in law between games of skill and games of chance when it comes to gambling. So, yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, these are games of skill, so maybe the betting is legal. I mean, yeah, okay, fine. We will use real money contests or challenges, they quoted. There's no way that this ends well, by the way. There's no possible way this ends well. Dave & Buster's said there will be a limit placed on the size of bets, but did not publicly disclose the limit yet. They are going to get sued. They are going to get sued. Did legal approve of this? Who at legal approved of this scheme? They're going to get sued. I'm not sure how or why, but they're going to get sued. Fantastic. In zebra news, a local zebra has become a local legend as the search enters day 3. We're unable to find the zebra because, you know, it's camouflaged and stuff. Yeah. Here is a picture of some zebras. Here is another picture of a zebra. Here is yet more picture of a zebra on the I-90. Hilarious. In North Bend, Washington, a zebra is still on the loose near North Bend And on day 3 of the search, people are starting to report zebra sightings. The missing stallion was one of 4 zebras that escaped a trailer on the I-90 while being transported. It's whimsical, unbelievable, it's fun. It's magical to imagine a zebra running in our woods. You got a zebra problem, man. You got a zebra problem. King County Animal Control, who can't believe that they have to deal with this shit, confirmed there was a report of a zebra sighting about a day into the search near Southeast 145th Street, but they were not able to get an officer on the scene quickly enough to capture the zebra. Now they plan to have patrols several times a day. The zebra hunt is on. The zebra hunt is on. Patrick Murphy snapped video. I would capture the zebra and keep it in my house. It's going to be my new friend. I will feed it and I will name it George. And it will be my friend and I'm not giving it back. You'll have to come and take it. Patrick Murphy snapped video of the encounter with his missing stallion on his Monday morning run in the same area Tuesday and reported it. It's kind of like a local Bigfoot now. I hope they catch him, but the zebra might live in the hills forever and in our hearts. I jokingly said, you don't find the zebra finds you. Yeah, good times. A county spokesman said capturing the zebra isn't so black and white. Ha 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 ha. We'll let it come to us versus spooking it and chasing it completely out of the area when we know where it is already. That's kind of why we haven't had any big search parties. Due to the terrain being very forested, kind of sloped area with no fences, it's really hard to capture such a fast animal. They are waiting for it to go towards a more enclosed area where they could corner it or maybe capture it. Zebras can be nasty. That is true. Zebras can be nasty. Yeah, they are not horses. They will wreck your world. And that is the end of that story, which is just, that's just fun. That's just a fun story. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, there's this one about transgender health care that needs to be paid for by state insurance. I think I'd like to save that as well for a video on demand. So put that on the list. If we can find stuff to deal with that, I'd like to see if we can find if we can find stuff for video on demand. So put that on the list and we'll save that for a story for a later time. Let's see what else we got. All right, I guess we'll just end with Florida Man. Well, we have 2 Florida Man stories to end it with. We have 2 Florida Man stories that we can end you with. All right, so which Florida Man story is more Florida Man? All right, I think I know which story is more Florida Man. All right, I'm going to start with lesser Florida Man story, and we'll end with better Florida Man story. I'm making a judgment call about which is best story, so you'll have to bear with me. All right. In yard news of Florida Man, a lawn care saga over how tall the grass is has come to an end. Yes, Florida Man doesn't want to mow his grass, and he's very, very serious about not mowing his grass. Retiree Jim Finken can breathe easy. After 6 years, 2 lawsuits, and legal fees over $30,000 for grass, a new settlement has been brought to closure. The agreement ends the city's pursuit to recover $10,000 in attorney's fees that officials tried to characterize as administrative expenses after reducing the original fine by 80%. The reduction was only possible because of reforms the city instituted soon after Finken filed his first lawsuit. Initially, the city attempted to tack on $25,000 for out-of-pocket legal expenses before realizing it had mischaracterized the figure, or miscalculated rather. As a result of the settlement, the man will not have to cough up any amount for bogus fees, an important consolation following setbacks in his lawsuit. Finken attempted to reason with code enforcement officers before going to court, explaining that his lawn had grown long while he was settling his late mother's estate in South Carolina, and the landscaper he used to mow his grass while he was gone had died unexpectedly. He asked for leniency, but the city refused to budge and insisted on full payment of $500 per day. That's a lot for 2 months. They even put a lien on his home and authorized city attorneys to instate proceeding. $500 a day, that's a lot of fine, man. In response, Finken filed a federal lawsuit with representation from the Institute of Justice. That's pretty hilarious. The Institute of Justice is a great organization. I just find it mildly hilarious they decided to take this case. That's some outstanding stuff. Asserting excess fines and due process. I mean, that sounds right to me. He lost in district court and again in the Court of Appeals, but won in other ways. His case ignited a media frenzy and public calls for reform, prompting the city to overhaul code enforcement regime to prevent ruinous fines for trivial offenses. After legal battles, he managed to get the fines reduced enough to prevent foreclosure. He thought he was safe, but then the city hit him with the bill for attorney's fees, a retroactive attempt to penalize him for seeking his day in court. Left with no choice, he sued again in 2023. The city could have avoided lawsuits merely by treating Finken like a neighbor instead of a cash machine. While Finken acknowledged his brief breach of the city ordinance and accepted some kind of penalty, the city's aggressive tactics, aiming to extract tens of thousands of dollars and take us home, was blatantly excessive. American jurisprudence dictates punishment must fit the crime. Municipalities must balance code enforcement with common sense and respect for property rights. The city moved in the right direction by making adjustments to its policy. However, the problem of excess fines and fees is not confined to this particular city. It is a national issue. To some degree, that is true. Across the country, similar stories of overzealous code enforcement abound. In a different place of Florida, a homeowner was fined more than $100,000 for parking violations on their own property. I wonder where they left the car. In Georgia, another person was criminally prosecuted for having cracks in her driveway. I'd like to know more about that. And in Missouri, a different person had to pay a fine for not having a screen on her back door. Again, I feel like there are missing details. Florida demographics create additional pressure. Many residents are retirees on fixed income living in single-family housing. Sometimes enforcement is about preserving the aesthetic, as seen in Miami Shores. Officials there declared vegetable gardens unsightly and threatened a man if he didn't remove his vegetable garden. Well, his front yard, so I mean, there is that. So I appreciate that. So that is the end of that story. All right, my friends, we will end with other Florida man story, which in my judgment is peak Florida man. So you'll have to judge whether or not I got the priority correct, whether or not this story is peak Florida man. I mean, I think it is, but we'll see. In Florida man news, the sauce has come due. Florida man has been arrested after throwing his pasta with sauce amid a road rage incident. We have a little bit of road rage with a side of spaghetti. Fantastic. The Florida man has been arrested after flinging pasta with sauce at another driver during a road rage incident. Nolan Goins, 46, was arrested Thursday on misdemeanor of battery after allegedly got caught up in the road rage incident over glaring headlights. He was traveling along Park Street near Bay Pines Boulevard in St. Petersburg, Florida, at around 9 p.m. when glare from a driver's headlights sparked a road rage incident, according to the arrest affidavit. While traffic was still moving, the man purportedly threw pasta with sauce from the passenger side, hurling the food out of his open window, hitting another person who was driving at the same time, according to an affidavit. While the driver was hit on the arms, legs, and torso, the pasta did not leave any injuries. The man was later found with the same food stains on the right sleeve of his shirt, according to arrest records. He was taken into custody in Pinellas County and released the next day on a $1,000 bond. Just a week before, in Indianapolis, police showed up at the scene of a road rage incident with a pregnant woman, visibly shaken and covered with spaghetti. Apparently, spaghetti is the new way of sending a message. Indianapolis police were called to the scene after a driver reported that a woman in an SUV was following her and flashing a handgun. The woman allegedly nearly hit the pregnant woman's car and tailgated her up to an intersection, at which point she threw a container of spaghetti into the victim's open window. The victim tried to get out of the car and talk to the woman, but the woman allegedly pointed a gun at her. That is a lot. The woman was later arrested but denied pointing the gun, so that is ongoing. Well, my friends, that will bring us to the end of Thursday Night Thunderdome. And I thought that this was a lot of fun, and I hope you had a good time too. We had a good time together, you and I, and the 180 of you who are here together with me. We have a new Instagram notification thing, maybe, depending on whether or not people actually use it. Has the bot been telling you about the Instagram thing? I haven't actually seen it. Has the notification been going out about the Instagram thing? I've been trying. First of all, I have stories go up now. So I have an automatic story go up. So you get notification that way. And if enough people join the Instagram group to make it worth my time, then we'll try an Instagram group. So we've announced that. So there's the link. So we have a link. And if you'd like to join it for Insta alerts, then we'll give that a shot. So it's dependent on enough people joining for it to, make sense. 34 of you are currently there, so that's a good start. Yeah. All right, great. So that's a good start. You haven't been seeing the bot tell you about it? The bot hasn't been telling you about it? That's lame. All right. I might have to double check my settings somewhere if the bot hasn't been telling you about it. I guess I can do that now because we're at the end of the stream, so let me go ahead and check it real fast. The bot hasn't said anything tonight. Oh, the bot is just down, period. Oh, that's sad. Maybe I somehow turned it off completely. Let's double check. Did I make a mistake? Let's find out. Let's see. Streaming tools, chat bot, timers. No, it looks like it's on. Let's see if I do this, if it just types anything. Yeah, just now realizing it. The bot somehow has failed us. No, okay, the bot is there, but it's not sending any timers. That's interesting. I wonder why not. I'm not sure why. No, that's because I manually typed it. I manually typed the trigger to see if it worked. The commands are working. I'm curious why the timers aren't working. If the timers are not working, you're not getting regular alerts from the bot on a timer. Yeah. So I'm not sure what that's all about. So the bot is here, but just not sending out things. That's interesting. I'm not sure what that's all about. It looks okay. Well, if it becomes an issue again, we'll have to try to dig into it deeper, but it looks okay for the moment. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off for now. I hope you've been enjoying the stream. I've been enjoying my time with you. I'm on civil law, and until later, my friends. Oh, by the way, just a program note. I've already announced this, but just a friendly reminder. I'm going to go visit my parents, and so there will be a bit of a disruption to the streaming. We're still planning on doing Thunderdome Thursday, but there might be disruption for the next couple days, so just a friendly reminder. And if you happen to live in the Greenville area, Greenville, South Carolina, if you happen to live in the Greenville, South Carolina area and you'd like to, meet up or something, send me an email, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. I've been on civil law. Until later, my friends, I hope all's well. Cheers, my friends, for now, and goodbye.